This is an Avocado Media Network presentation.
The Art.Is.Tic. It's an honor to be here, my brother. Turn me up in the headphones a little bit. You know, there's an old saying. All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. Well, we done doing nothing. But may the light forever shine on everyone that glow before me. We used to be just dope, now this whiskey soaked in glory.
Chapter 4. You and I Could Make Forever. Girls. I feel like that is the only way to ever truly begin any chapter about them. An exclamation at just how much we know and yet we don't know about them. Furthermore, I would like to state that this account of my interaction with them is by no way indicative of the behavior of a larger group in a means to feign some form of any understanding of the female species. I will be the first to begin this chapter by saying I never learned the things I knew about women from women, so I am fully aware of the disconnect between genders. This is purely an account of my travels in and out of the hearts of many beings. My father never gave me the talk. My father, who I place on this podium with my misgivings, had an obligation to teach me how I was to conduct myself around women, most especially being he had me living with two under his roof. This is something I feel strongly about. I believe if more fathers can show their sons how to be fathers before they showed them how to be men, they would heal a very big wound in the world. When I look at imagery of men hurting themselves or other people, I always see men that are crying out in a lesson on how to do many things, and in this case, love being one of them. I, however, don't hate him for his grave mistake because I think my alternative could not have been better. In fact, if given the chance, I would volunteer to learn about love and girls from 70s television shows and music that was inspired by psychedelic drugs. Before I met them through music, I met girls through cinema, and for some reason, at a young age, I was looking beyond the smokescreen of Hollywood. When I was in my definitive years, I still carried pretty old-fashioned views on love. Admittedly, these old-fashioned views on love may be a world problem today. All I'm saying is when my friends were feeling comfortable being promiscuous, I didn't. Because I had not seen the perfect marriages in the house I grew up, I was determined to, at least, see them in mine. So, from the beginning, I believed love was a place where you had to be to function as we're made to function. I still believe the efficiency of human beings is based on the well-being of their mind and body, and one of the things that weighs in on that is love and relationships. Jokingly, and a little away from the point to be honest, I always said anybody acting irrationally just needs to have sex. I believe sex is, among many things, a way to reset your body. And that's why men kill themselves over their wives cheating. But away from that, I learned about girls and relationships from some of the wisest people on the face of this earth. To me, the vehicles that culture came to me on will forever be the things I idolize. From DMX to Naruto, the respect that I have for these vehicles is infinite. That these beautiful means of travel were the ones that sat down to talk to me on how to feel about girls makes my smile even wider. Around the time I started really liking girls, I was listening to two types of music because I was living two lives. To my friends, I was the typical teen trying to find himself in masculine music like rap. To the girls, I was a sophisticated sponge that was listening to Westlife and Backstreet Boys. It is interesting, when I look back, to see how both sides impacted each other over the years. My first love was a true African woman as I imagine her. She had long, flowing, natural hair that she wore in a bun that flared out at the back like the feathers of a majestic bird. She was slightly plump and carried herself like she was ready for anything the world could throw at her. When I met her, we had been thrown into the same literature class, and because of this, our first interactions with each other were reading exercises. To date, I cannot honestly tell you whether I think she was a good first love back then, knowing what I know now about love. All I can truly say is that I appreciate the experience and that she is as happy as she seemed the last time I saw her. Back in school, she was ahead of me, in the way they say girls progress quicker than boys. Near the end, she started seeing this guy from another class that acted older than me, and that was the first time I remember being powerless in love. I remember being upset because for the first time, I was not enough, because I wasn't cool enough. It finally wasn't enough that all I was known for was rapping at school talent shows and being an honest boyfriend. The new guy could bring her the danger that her emotions would mature to. Even as I make this account, I have realized that I'm trying my best to not paint her in a bad light. It is almost as though I still idolize her. The little boy in me still connects with a storyline where good girls end up with good guys. Being the one that was denied in that relationship all those years ago has put me on the back foot as far as love is concerned. Apart from very unique situations involving my perception as a musician, I have always been the first to catch feelings in a world where men are supposed to be emotionless. As a side note, I think that this is the reason Drake is popular among men. I feel like in a very masculine world, Drake sells men their true selves and they indulge him because every little boy needs a hug that he never got. Returning to relationships. My next love interest was my first glimpse of the modern woman. I say modern woman in this case like every typical man would say. She was not the princess in distress that my first girlfriend had been. She was stern and almost aggressive about her views. I met her in the gap year after secondary school, and at the time we were both making up our minds on how we felt about things in the pending adult world. I don't remember not being happy for her over her self-discovery. I remember feeling like at the end of our growth curve, we would be two minds better equipped to be an example of love in young people. It is also very important to note that this was the time in our lives when we had seen what happens in the big people's world, and we were truly aware of what they expected of us. This young queen was important to me because even though we had broken up by then, she was around when my father died. I believe that the people and things around you while you go through trauma become significant in your life. You will always remember a girlfriend or even a workmate because of a really emotional time in your life. Even after we had broken up, she donned the traditional chitenge and came to pay respects to my father. And she did it like the true New World woman she was. She didn't enter the house to console my mother. She didn't greet the elders outside the house. I'm fully aware that she did this out of true and honest lack of knowledge, but I remember finding flattery in the fact that she had broken through traditional stereotypes to make me feel better. I believe that this is how compliments should be handled, with a total respect and understanding of the person giving the compliment. When I came to Lusaka, a lot shifted in how I viewed the concept of love, and looking back, I now realize these views were peer pressured into me through my idolization of big city minds. In Lusaka at the time, every nerd had become a cool kid, forcing everyone to aspire to be a nerd or pretend to be one just to fit in. Because of shows like The Big Bang Theory, How I Met Your Mother, and albums like The Come Up by J. Cole, So Far Gone, Drake, and Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar, a wave of self-awareness was seeping through the city. After all the messaging we had picked up from our pimply days, we wanted to make sense of everything we were watching and listening to. I have always wondered how things like nerd glasses have become a social trend. In a world full of complaints against cultural appropriation, it is truly sad to notice that the nerds are not allowed to complain about having theirs appropriated. Before I jump to my next physical love interest, however, allow me to tell you about a mental love interest I once had. During my first days on social media, High5, MySpace, ProDigits, and Facebook, I developed a fascination with being able to speak to people on the other side of the world. To my young mind, they were a gateway into a world I was physically inhibited from seeing. During this time, I had 4 different relationships with women that were not physically available, and I had no explanation for it, apart from the fact that people that would come within a meter of me would not have wanted to date me. All apart from one girl. She is very integral to this chapter though, so I shall not jump into why she is unique to me as a muse for the song Goodnight Text, which happens to be my first successful international feature. Successful in this case meaning that I both liked and owned the song. One of the girls I dated online started out as a fan of my music. In a very strange way, as a white American female, she was very passionate about Africa and its people, among other things. Please remember that this was a time when many African youths were making up their minds on how they truly felt about race. The nerve of me choosing to date a white girl via the internet while I was a black African rapper shall never be lost on me. All that doesn't take away from the fact that I would do it all over again. She was a very important part of my life because I was making up my mind on race at the same time as I was making up my mind on love. This gave me an angle that makes it possible for me to analyze race from a very impartial and fair standpoint. I just realized this is a really good book. Side note. When I was done with long-distance relationships, I entered a relationship with another woke woman. Please note that the reason for not mentioning my previous white partner's level of being woke is not to make her seem in any way less concerned with the African American and, by extension, the African plight. I just believe there is something about a black female's self-awareness that deserves a podium. This girl is important to me because she showed me firsthand the dangers of living in this nerd-appropriated world. The generation of youth that grew to wear the nerd glasses as a fashion statement will forever be haunted by the things they saw when they pulled the curtain back, and proof of that is not only the number, but also the manner of suicides in my age group. I have always walked tenderly around people's beliefs because I was aware about how insecure the probing of my own beliefs made me. Along the way to self-discovery, my generation had to suspend beliefs that built their very fabric, and that may be the greatest tragedy around everything we have achieved. One of the many side effects of suspending faith in a system is the awareness of a general pointlessness of everything. When you finally arrive at the point where you are comfortable with saying the only theory of your existence that cannot be truly disproved is that we're all characters in a simulation, it becomes very difficult to make it out of bed on the hard days. I may be wrong, but I believe my girlfriend was depressed in this very manner. She had been one of those girls that looked behind the curtain of society and realized that she didn't have the energy to do this forever. Interestingly, I met her at a sad time in my life. I had been bedridden due to chest infection, and many a night she talked me out of not killing myself because I felt like I was pointless if I didn't make music. I feel like I fell in love with her in a very small way, out of gratitude for her saving my life. Because of this, it is ironic that during the course of our relationship, I was sucked into depression out of my obligation to save a woman I loved because she saved me. Due to the nature of her issues, I can never divulge what they were, but I want her to know I understand why she was the way she was, and I don't blame her for any depression I was caused during the course of loving her. Admittedly, I may be downplaying her role in my mental injury, but we must also remember I was raised in a house where I saw my mother drop everything for a sometimes ungrateful man, so my views are not the most unbiased. All I'm trying to say is, hurt people hurt people. When this girl broke up with me, I was so exhausted from trying to love her right that my moral resolve went into shock. For a long period of time after that, I used my music appeal to hurt women because I wanted them to feel what I felt. Some of these women may be reading this book, and I would like to apologize for being such a vile human being. My punishment probably came when the next girl I fell in love with was equally so broken by someone that she always said I reminded her of, that she hurt me more. During the last months of our relationship, because of her abuse, I was literally choosing her over my own peace of mind and self-worth. During this time, I had the most mind-bending affair with a woman on the side. Many may call it a typical male decision made in weakness, but the situation coupled with pending celebrity blinded me from the fact that we three, maybe more, hurt people that were trying to fill their holes with pieces of other people. By the time I realized it, I was a semi-famous rapper with a girlfriend I didn't like because she wouldn't make way for a woman I didn't know whether I loved. Somewhere around this time, I had written a love song called Breathe, where I had feigned being in love so convincingly it even surprised me. This was the state of mind I had as I sat down to write goodnight text. I wanted this song to be perfect because I wanted it to be the perfect apology for the lack of commitment established in Breathe. I not only wanted to make the most honest love song to my current girlfriend, but I also wanted to find a way to do it that wouldn't make my previous relationships feel insulted.
The Art.Is.Tic. It's an honor to be here, my brother. Turn me up in the headphones a little bit. You know, there's an old saying: all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. Well, we done doing nothing. About to stretch.
Made a light forever shine on everyone that glowed before me. We used to be just dope, now this whiskey soaked in glory. They made us Harley Quinns, we opened up for jokers. Stole this league from the shadows, now they kneel when they approach us. Even before you sit, these suckers who dethrone you, son.
Are you a fan of classic African music? Well, we have just the thing for you. Coming soon to the Avocado Media Network is the Pan-African Party. The Pan-African Party is a weekly celebration of African music hosted by critics. Keep an eye on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages for more news. The Pan-African Party, celebrating African excellence.